This is insane. Did Trump just accumulate 652,174 BTC from capturing Maduro? Buckle up, because it may be even more bullish than that, my friends. Despite stocks and shiny rocks being at all-time highs, Bitcoin being down 30% from its high, you better not get too excited, bears, because despite the drawdown, the diamond-handed Bitcoin ETF boomers' cumulative flows are down less than 10% from their October top. And sovereigns, they bought the dip.
We're seeing more and more legitimate long-only investors investing in it. There was an article about a foundation, endowment just bought a lot of IBIT. But I can tell you there are a number of sovereign funds that are standing by. They're adding incrementally at 120, at 100. I know they bought more in the 80s. Right. That's fine, and they're establishing a longer position, and you own it over years. This is not a trade. You own it for a purpose.
Okay, so here we go. Was Donald Trump's capture of Maduro really a play to almost triple the size of America's Bitcoin reserve? And is Trump creating a mechanism for America to constantly stack and add to said reserve? We have an absolutely massive show to get to. That's right. Sunday.
Yeah, I think the future currency will essentially just be wattage.
Yeah, I was thinking, is the ability of a person to control energy and compute, or just energy? I mean, the two two translate, obviously.
Just like harnessed energy.
Yeah.
Like so, or like basically how much power is being turned into work of some kind.
Right.
Intelligence or matter manipulation.
Spoiler alert! The future? It isn't decided in elections. It's decided by who controls the most Bitcoin. Money talks louder than politicians. It actually forces the politicians into compliance. And yes, the politicians are learning this. Listen to Venezuela's opposition leader here speaking on building on what Elon said in creating a bit of an energy and currency flywheel. Check it out.
To have other people understand, the huge potential Venezuela has, not only for Bitcoin, because this is something we didn't have the chance to speak today, probably not another opportunity, but Venezuela could be the biggest energy hub of the hemisphere. Mm-hmm. And imagine a country with this potential, what could do in terms of getting Bitcoin to be a trade and reserve currency because of transactions with a commodity such as oil and gas and other energy. So, look, we need to raise our voices. And sometimes I feel like, the world doesn't understand or doesn't care for what's going on here. And today, more than ever, we need your support.
Whoa, easy. Rustin, are you sure that Trump is running Venezuela now? I don't know. If you ask me, it's pretty obvious. Now, we all saw the news, the crazy Black Ops mission, but Trump announced that the government will subsidize the big oil companies to drill in Venezuela. This means taxpayers will pay for the companies to make profits. It's a tale as old as the state. Socialize the costs, privatize the profits. The greatest of all time, Ron Paul, calls it out for what it is. Check it out.
The seizing of this oil, and then how ecstatic the business people are. I think so much of corporatism, that's a soft term, but what about the early stages of fascism? Oh, you couldn't possibly use those words. It's that advancement to accepting government and big business as close partnership that I see clearly as they've gotten a big boost on this.
That's a great point that you're making, because one of the complaints about Venezuela is that, well, they have state-run enterprises. They have their oil system is state-run. Well, ours is sort of de facto state-run, isn't it? Because these companies, they went into Venezuela, many decades ago. They took risks. There are always risks when you when you invest in anything. They took the risks in Venezuela. They made some profits. Several decades ago, the oil companies were nationalized, and they went to court. They took Venezuela to court, et cetera, et cetera. All of these things happen. But now it's all of a sudden our oil again, and our government has to use its own military to get back our oil. But it's to the benefit of oil companies. These are acting like state-owned enterprises.
But, you know, there's a lot of fuzziness in between here. So when our companies get in there, Iran as an example, Venezuela, different places, big oil and big companies go in and make their investments, then things go wrong, and then they expect the American taxpayer, who made no money during this time, they're supposed to march down there and take care of them. I think that principle is wrong.
Greatest statesman! But hey, what if there's a lot more to this than just meets the eye? Just in, the U.S. to potentially seize Venezuela's Bitcoin reserves. And also, the TV's reporting on this.
So there is a second order crypto effect here where since for going back a decade now, my reporting was back in 2017, because of spiraling inflation of the Bolivar, a lot of people had turned to cryptocurrencies, mining Ethereum and Bitcoin in their homes in order to just have a stable source of cash. But the other side of this is the fact that there are multiple reports that the government itself has been looking to evade sanctions by doing sales of oil in Tether, which they then move into Bitcoin. And so much of this market moves on sentiment. So even the promise that perhaps the U.S. government, when they came in, might seize these assets, hold on to it, that's a bull case for Bitcoin if you have a stockpile such as that that isn't being liquidated.
All right, very interesting stuff. Very quickly, because we got to go. Is it a tailwind for just Bitcoin or also Ethereum, Solana, and some of these other coins?
It's a rising tide lifts all ships. In fact, XRP has had outsized performance. And when you see one altcoin do particularly well, it really is one of these signs of a risk-on environment. All
right, Mackenzie Sigalos, great to see you as always. Thank you very much. All right, before we let you go, one more look at the futures right.
Oh man, I feel like I've been saying this for years. Sell the oil, stack the Bitcoin in your reserve. That's the flywheel. And just in, Trump says Venezuela will be turning over 30 and 50 million barrels of high-quality sanctioned oil to the United States of America. Sold at market price with the money controlled by Trump. Well, let's go ahead and think on this. Do a little 10th grade math, shall we? So, 2 tankers scored a combined 80 million barrels. Let's say each barrel is about $60. And at a Bitcoin price of, let's do 92,000, that's about 4.8 billion. That would bring the Bitcoin yield of just those 2 seized tankers to about 52,174 BTC. And that's on top of the 600,000 seized, bringing the total to 652,174 BTC. That triples the size of America's Bitcoin reserve like Thanos snapping his fingers. This is nuts. Now, why all of this to get some Bitcoin, you might be asking? Well, just like V for BTC's post at the beginning, whoever holds the most Bitcoin wins. And it's because Bitcoin is playing for all the marbles, and its upside is unlimited. Ladies and gentlemen, Saifedean Moose, roll it.
Most people think Bitcoin rises and takes over when fiat dies, and Bitcoin has to kill fiat, and that fiat has to die if Bitcoin is going to rise. But it's entirely plausible in my mind that we just continue with the same trend that we've had over the last 50 years with fiat and over the last 15 years with with Bitcoin. And that Bitcoin continues to appreciate, fiat continues to depreciate. The fiat economy becomes smaller over time because inflation is destroying value and because people move from fiat to Bitcoin, and the Bitcoin economy gets larger over time. Extrapolate that over another 10, 20 years, 30 years. Eventually the Bitcoin economy becomes bigger, and we have a Bitcoin economy that dominates the world, and fiat continues to become a less and less significant part of the world economy. In a sense, this is what's been going on over the last 10 years. You know, we're repricing everything in sats, and we're redenominating the entire world in Satoshis. So, you know, they just need to, everything else needs to drop another 90% and in Satoshi terms, and the Bitcoin economy grows another 100x or so. And then the world is effectively on a Bitcoin standard. So I've stopped waiting for fiat to die, and I'm just enjoying Bitcoin grow.
You're enjoying Bitcoin winning. So this reminds me, we were doing a panel yesterday at the conference, and you said the Bitcoin price is the only thing that matters. And I guess this is why. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the scoreboard. I mean, it's a lot of people have this kind of it's the anti-capitalist mentality, as Mises calls it, where people think that wanting to be financially secure is morally dubious. That you're a bad person if you care about securing your kids. If you don't want your kids to be debt slaves, then you're a selfish, evil, sociopathic person. Just like people who want to keep the value of their money. These things are pathologized in modern fiat society because that's government propaganda. They need your money, and they need you to be a slave, and they need your kids to be slaves to pay taxes and to suffer from inflation. So if you try and find a way around this, you get a lot of social disapproval. You get a lot of hate. So I think ultimately it's just, I think the propaganda is what continues that, but I think in the real world, people are just going to continue to behave in a way that benefits them. And the real measure of how Bitcoin succeeds or fails is just how big the market capitalization of Bitcoin is. It's, if you're thinking about the market for shoes, there's total addressable market, 16 billion feet on Earth that you have to cover with shoes, roughly. And if you have a chunk of that market, somebody else doesn't. Mm-hmm. And it's how much of that shoes can you take in that market. And then Bitcoin is in the market for money. And money is the biggest market of all. People don't think of it that way, in the same way that fish don't understand what water is. But money is a market itself. We don't think of it that way because government generally wants us to think of money as just being the neutral layer of a market. A market is something that is happening.
It's built on top of money.
It's built on top of money. But money itself is a market. And that's the powerful Austrian idea. And once you think of money as a market, you realize it has a total addressable market, which is all of the world's cash balances. All of the money that people hold for the sake of money, not as investment and not as... the wealth that people hold not as consumer goods and not as investments and as capital goods, as money, as liquid wealth, things that they hold so that they can spend later. And that's about $300 trillion if you count physical money, checking accounts, savings accounts, and government bonds, which I would count as well, and gold. That's about $300 trillion. So Bitcoin is already at $2 trillion. So it's less than 1% of the total addressable market. But if it's at 50%, if it's at 60, 70%, then it's 1. And then, it doesn't matter what people think. So if Bitcoin goes up 100x from where it is right now, if we're at $9 million or $5 million or something like that, Bitcoin is the biggest monetary asset in the world. The cash balances in Bitcoin exceed everything else. Bitcoin is the world's money. That's it. It's game over. And that's just about the price. So the harder we pump the price, the more Bitcoin is winning. It offends people that somebody could write a book and be so intellectual about Bitcoin and then just sound like a total moon boy cheering on the price, but that's ultimately what it is. Bitcoin is a price technology. It's really all about that number, because the higher that number goes, the larger the size of cash balances in Bitcoin, the more successful Bitcoin is as money. And the more you are able to use it as money, the more wealth is stored in it, and the less wealth is being devalued through government inflation. So we need to move all of the world's wealth into Bitcoin in order to really kill fiat. Mm-hmm. That's the long, painful way of doing this. Initially, when I first got into Bitcoin, and I think a lot of people, when they first get into Bitcoin, they imagine that, because, figuring out Bitcoin and understanding the process is so mind-blowing that you imagine, all right, now everybody's going to get this and everybody's going to dump their fiat and everybody's going to go into Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is going to moon overnight, $1 million of Bitcoin tomorrow. But then over time, you realize people are a lot stupider than you give them credit for. So it's going to take a lot longer. And they're going to need to get poorer before they figure it out and understand it. And we're going to take the long, scenic, ugly road toward a world where Bitcoin dominates cash balances. So it's going to be a while, unfortunately, which is sad because the world needs to get rid of fiat. But, Rome was not built in...
And breaking! Orange Man is not stopping at Venezuela. Greenland is next! Although, apparently Denmark. You know what they did recently to boost security in Greenland? They added one more dog sled. They thought it was a great move.
You know what Denmark did recently to boost up security in Greenland? They added one more dog sled. It's true. They thought that was a great move.
If you ask me, it's probably a great place to mine some corn. But now what if America sold those 652,000 Bitcoin? That's insane, Rustin. That would violate the executive order. Well, spoiler alert, they're already violating the law, and we have receipts and precedent to prove it. But before we bring it home today, look at our likes!
3 or 4 times, maybe. I gotta pump those numbers up. Those are rookie numbers in this racket.
Let's take a moment to recognize our sponsors powering this show over at the Bitcoin Way. At the Bitcoin Way, they'll walk you through all things Bitcoin, like it's kindergarten with Satoshi. From setting up your first wallet to running your first node and so much more. No tech skills needed. The Bitcoin Way has got you covered. You want $1 million Bitcoin? Better act like it. Self-custody is not optional. That is the revolution. Schedule a free 30-minute consultation with the Bitcoin Way today using that link in the show notes. Today's show is brought to you by Ledn. If you ever need cash without selling your Bitcoin, Ledn makes that possible. The global leader in Bitcoin-backed lending, Ledn has issued over $9 billion in loans since 2018. And they have a perfect record of protecting client assets. No credit checks, funds in less than 6 hours, no monthly payments, repay whenever you want with 0 penalties, and proof of reserves reports, verified by a top accounting firm, are published every 6 months. Ledn gives Bitcoin holders a secure, transparent way to unlock liquidity without selling. Learn more at learn.ledn.io/simply. That's learn.ledn.io/simply. Right. Big finish time. New reporting suggests that the Southern District of New York and the Department of Justice may have quietly sold Bitcoin forfeited by the Samurai Wallet developers, despite President Trump's Executive Order 14233, which explicitly requires forfeited Bitcoin to be held in the U.S. Strategic Bitcoin Reserve, not liquidated. Documents indicate roughly 57.5 Bitcoin, about 6.3 million, was transferred directly to Coinbase Prime and likely sold, bypassing long-term government custody. That would directly contradict the executive order, which states government Bitcoin shall not be sold. This isn't an isolated issue. I think of the past few months, they've only released about 1% of the Epstein documents, but the SDNY has a track record of ignoring federal guidance. The hell's wrong with these people? Continuing prosecutions of non-custodial developers even after DOJ memos ordering an end to regulation by prosecution. Senator Cynthia Lummis is now demanding answers, warning the U.S. cannot afford to dump strategic Bitcoin while other nations are stacking. Bottom line, if this sale happened, it wasn't required by law, it was a choice. And it raises serious questions in whether the so-called war on crypto is actually over. The senator is deeply concerned about this report. Us too, Senator, but that is why we shall hold their feet to the fire and stop selling our corn to those ravenous stackers in El Salvador. Godspeed, Mr. Bukele, and I mean Maduro. That's great and all, but when this... Oh man, the fourth turning does not let up, but damn it, we have to admit it's pretty entertaining. And the possibility of World War III is higher than ever, which is probably a good time to visit our new sponsor, Sat123. Because when cell service dies, life doesn't have to. Sat123 hooks you up with real satellite phones, Starlink kits, and rugged off-grid internet that works anywhere. Mountains, ocean, middle of nowhere, it doesn't matter. If you care about preparedness, freedom, and staying connected when it actually counts, go to sat123.com. That's sat123.com, and don't forget to use promo code SIMPLY for 15% off. No signal? No problem. Hey, what do you guys make of all this? Let us know below, and I hope you enjoyed this one. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and give us a pamp by sharing the Sound Money Gospel. I love you guys. I'll catch you tomorrow. Peace.
If you prefer to go down with the ship, you.